Good afternoon, everyone. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Welcome to my YouTube weather channel. On this Monday, August 20th, it is 12:15 Eastern Time, which puts us at 6:15 a.m. Hawaii time. I am jumping on early today. Noon live streams are not common for me. Usually I do them in the evening, but I have some time today. So seeing what's been going on with respect to Hurricane Lane, I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time on this live stream focusing on that system. And we'll come back probably later on tonight and update this and do a full normal weather live stream. I'm glad to see some of you folks that are on board here this morning. Sebastian P., Aaron Raybear. I hope if I said that correctly. James NASCAR, Dio Nan Kumar, G. White, Iron Mine, Brian Patterson, Jason Schaefer. So let's talk about what's going on with respect to Hurricane Lane. And let me just say a couple of things off the bat. As far as Hawaii, uh, I've been there. I was there once, many years ago. Beautiful island. It's a paradise. If you've never been, everybody should go there at least once in their lifetime. But I can give you only my perspective, obviously. And for those of you that may be watching from the Hawaiian Islands, welcome to my YouTube channel. But just please remember that your sources of information regarding any kind of decision making, if it ever comes to that, that is from your local officials, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, also your go-to place for information. I'm just going to give you a little bit of meteorological perspective here on what is happening and what could possibly happen. The threat, according to the Hurricane Center, and I would agree with this, that the threat is increasing for the Hawaiian Islands as a lot of the weather models continue to trend northward, showing a northward turn. So let me show you what is happening with regards to all of this, and we'll put a few things front and center, starting with the latest satellite loop. And I'm going to show you the wide loop first, because at least you can gain some perspective as to where this is with respect to Hawaii. It's a little over 600 miles to the east-southeast of Hilo, Hawaii on the Big Island, and it's a little over 800 miles to the east-southeast of Honolulu on the island of Oahu. Well, I think I've said that right, Oahu. So what are we seeing here on the loop that's important? Well, first off, you can see Lane. It's gotten a little elongated. In other words, looks like it's getting a little stretched out north-south. We are seeing some wind shear going on, upper air winds strong enough where it's disrupting the circulation to a slight degree. It hasn't been really enough to take its toll on the strength. In fact, the Hurricane Center, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, has talked about the fact that it's actually had to nudge its intensity forecasts on this a bit higher because the system seems to be holding on to itself fairly well. Also, I want you to look at the clouds that are south of the westernmost Hawaiian Islands on southward. You can see those are blowing pretty much southwest to northeast. Upper air, there are strong upper air winds here, and this is going to play a role in terms of the intensity, because I think the big question, the other question other than the track, which is certainly far from certain, is what exactly are we going to be dealing with here? Is it going to maintain hurricane strength? Is it going to maintain the strength that it has now, which is at a Category 3 with 125-mile-an-hour winds? Or are we going to see this weaken? I will tell you that climatology and history suggests that a weakening will occur as it approaches the Hawaiian Islands. Aside from the fact that you've got the strong wind shear, the ocean water temperatures are not as warm relative to where the storm is now. And those slightly cooler ocean water temperatures will probably have some sort of impact on the strength. But we saw with Hector how it managed to not only hold on to strength as it went by to the south, but wound up gaining strength again, even though it passed well to the south of the Big Island and even further south from the other islands. So a lot of variables are going to be in question here. This system is a little bit bigger in terms of the coverage area. The core of the storm seems to be is a bit bigger than Hector was. Hector was relatively small. This one has a little more size to it, so it might not have to come as close to the islands, uh, and you would still wind up with some land impacts, assuming these tracks work out. And I have to tell you again, there's a whole lot of uncertainty here going forward. There are no tropical storm watches or warnings up other than what's up for the coastal waters well offshore, but which you would see anyway. But as far as any kind of land tropical storm watches up or hurricane watches up, the Hurricane Center has not put them up yet because there is still plenty of time. Here is the Hurricane Center's forecast for Hurricane Lane, and that last spot you see there is actually 2 a.m. Thursday, and at this point, it is still maybe a little less than 200 miles to the southwest of the Big Island of Hawaii. But you can see how when you look at the dots, if you connect the lines, it's bending toward the west-northwest, and then perhaps from here more toward the northwest. So it certainly seems like there will be a close call to the Hawaiian Islands, and it is something that at this point I would suggest that you pay attention to. By the way, on this product, if you look at the bottom, if this is new to you, you can see that the latest positions, the coordinates of the center, 13.7 to 148.2. This is on the 11 a.m. Eastern Time advisory, 5 a.m. Hawaii time. Top winds 125 miles an hour and moving to the west at 14. Here's a close-up of Lane. It's hard to see the eye on this infrared satellite picture. There is a bit of a warm spot, just slightly to, if you look mid-center of the loop, there is a bit of a warm spot just to the east of there, so that's probably where the eye is. But you can see there's just this kind of stretching that's going on a bit. That could be the results of some of the wind shear. The wind shear over it right now is not particularly strong, by the way. It's enough to keep it from getting any stronger, but it doesn't seem to be enough to cause any kind of major weakening. Here's the enhanced satellite picture. So you see that you see the big red area, the enhancement, the coldest cloud, highest cloud tops showing the core, and then there's a little of a warm spot there where you see that little yellow, not quite near the center of that red area, just to the east of that, but that's probably where the eye is at this point. Okay, so what is happening with respect to where this is going? You can, by the way, want to give credit to tropicaltidbits.com. If you go to tropicaltidbits.com and click on current storms, you're able to get access to a lot of this information here, including some of the track models and the intensity models. But and they're relatively easy to read. I'm going to show you some of them, but please bear in mind that these should not be used for decision making. You are, your Central Pacific Hurricane Center, and if it comes to that, it would be your local official. So I just want to just make that clear one more time. So here's what's happened when we look at the hurricane tracking models. You can see that the models are relatively tightly clustered until we get to later Wednesday and Wednesday night, and then they kind of start to diverge a little. But one of the biggest changes that we've seen in the last 2 days is that more and more of the models are showing this turn toward the northwest. And while all of the tracking models take the system west of the Big Island, the others do bring them relatively close to some of the other islands and also to the westernmost islands. And there are still a couple of track models that, by the way, keep this furthest to the south, which is where the European model is in all of this. But just the fact that we're seeing this trend certainly opens up the door to a high degree of uncertainty here as far as the forecast is concerned. And when we look at, by the way, I'm going to just show you the GFS just to show you how crazy it is. This is the GFS ensemble, and the GFS. There are about 20 some odd members of the GFS ensemble group. Each member has its different parameter that causes it to have different results. It emphasizes certain things over other things depending on which member you look at. The black line is the average track, which turns it northwestward, and then goes westward, west northwestward after that out. Looks like the mean position is still south and west of the islands, but close. You can see also the representation of the other ensemble members that are to the right of the mean track and to the left of the mean track. It looks like uh, it. I guess you might want to say it looks like at about now a 50-50 split between the ones that want to take it closer to the Hawaiian Islands, and some actually take them over some of the islands, versus the ones that take it close to the average track or to the west of the island. So there is your sprawling uncertainty here. Looks almost like a pinwheel of different tracks that are going on. And I think what you're going to see is models continue to show a pretty wide variation over the next day or so until they can get a good handle on whether this thing is going to be turning more toward the north or taking perhaps a more westerly course as favored by the European model. This is the GFS ensemble versus the European. Now here are the intensity models, and a number of them, and I guess this is going to be dependent on where they actually see the hurricane at. If they're taking a more westerly track, it perhaps keeps it in a bit more of a favorable environment versus if it takes more of a northerly track. And those that favor the more westerly track are keeping it as a Category 3. The others weakening it to a Category 1 by day 5. But I would caution you, strongly caution you with regards to this, in that we saw with Hector the parameters that looked like were going to cause some weakening did not materialize. So, there's no guarantee that you're going to wind up with a weakening system as it moves northward. So I would be just very, very cautious with this. It would seem unlikely that you would take this thing and hold it Category 3 status all the way up should it come very, very close to the islands. That would seem unlikely. It would go against a lot of climatology, storms. There have been many hurricanes that have made passes to the Hawaiian Islands, and there have been a number of them that have made approaches, and at the last minute, something happens where they weaken fairly rapidly, be it either the cooler water or the wind shear or some combination of both. But you can see that there is also some spread here when we talk about the intensity of this. So we've got enough of the GFS in on the new model run, and it's been doing this idea where it takes this hook to the northwest, and today's model run does again the same thing. It actually takes it over, skims it very close to the Big Island and some of the other islands, but notice it weakens quite rapidly as it does so. So, it's carrying, you have to be careful using these minimal pressures here because models don't often have a good scope about how low the pressures actually are, but it holds its own strength-wise until it gets close to the islands, and then it starts to weaken rather quickly, but it still has a rather formidable looking system that it straddles over the islands and then turns it westward as at this point, probably a weak tropical storm or a tropical depression, and then carries it away. This is on Tuesday. So just to give you a timing mode here. So we're at Tuesday morning here. We are at Wednesday morning. This is Thursday morning. This is Friday morning. And this is Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Saturday morning Eastern time. So we're talking, I should have said probably this would be, let me do that again just so to be clear for those of you who are watching from Hawaii. So Uh, this would be um, for your, you're going to have to subtract 6 hours from this. So this is actually for Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning, and Saturday morning. Okay, so there's your timing here. It doesn't look like you're going to have anything really to deal with. At the earliest would be maybe sometime during your early part of Thursday, and then beyond that. So again, if it becomes an issue. And why is this all happening? Why is this not taking a straight track to the west? Okay, so we're going to go to the upper air, and I think the best view is, this is the upper air close-up, but it doesn't really show the far enough north to show you what's happening. The biggest problem in all of this has been this upper high that is building to the north of Lane. And I'm going to illustrate this on my trusty little paint box. There we go. Okay, let's just center that for you a bit. And I just want to make it big enough so that you guys can see most of what's going on here. So this is what the GFS has in its upper air for Thursday 12Z, that's 12 Greenwich time. So this is basically, so for the East, that would be 6 a.m. For Hawaii, this would be at midnight Wednesday night in terms of what the upper air looks like. And there is an upper high that is sitting to the north that builds in the Gulf of Alaska. There is a big low that was there. It's weakening and it's being replaced by this rather strong upper high. But the problem is that the strongest part of that ridge is well to the north of where the storm is. So in the area that we have Hurricane Lane, which is represented here, I put it in the red circle, okay? So that's where Hurricane Lane is. The problem, at least when you look at the GFS model, is that because that ridge is so far to the north, there's actually some relative weakness in the upper flow in this area right in here. And the systems as they gain latitude want to go further north unless they're steered by strong easterly winds to push it along. If that flow is weak, it's going to want to respond to that by turning more toward the north. And I think that's, that this is where the GFS has been with regards to this. The European model has been a little different in its view. And I'm going to jump on the European model just a little bit further into the future. So this what you're going to be looking at is at 2 p.m. on Thursday, Hawaii time. So the European is doing something a bit different here. And the European is got that upper high, but if you look carefully at what it's showing, if you look closely at what it's showing with the upper high, and you just think back to what I showed you with the GFS, the upper high here has more strength on the southern flank than the GFS does. Here's your upper high right there, okay? And it has a bit more strength in that ridge. The edge of the ridge, kind of the way the European sees it, looks like this. So as a result, there, at least from the world that the picture that the European is painting, Lane is going to try to bend maybe a little bit more west northwestward, but it keeps it going west northwestward and passing south of the islands. So the big question is, is the European correct in this? And the European has a history of doing rather well with tropical systems. But we don't have a history of many storms out in this area to look at and to look back at and say, well, which model really handled it better or not. The European, in the case of Hector, was better, had the furthest south track than the other models, and it seemed to verify. The uh, GFS uh, was the furthest to the north and had to adjust. But now on this particular case, in the last case, we had a lot of support for the European models, for the European models idea. We have less support from other models this time around. So I think that puts in question whether the European is correct on the idea of keeping this further south and passing south of the islands where the impact would be minimal. The bottom line is that the uncertainty here is very high. It's going to remain rather high for a while until we can gain some consensus. And we are just going to have to watch this closely going forward, obviously. So I guess, if you guys, anybody that's watching from Hawaii, uh, you got to you're gonna have to be paying attention here. Okay, I think we're at that point where you have to at very least say, okay, let's pay attention to this. Let's hope that it doesn't happen. But it's out there. It could get close. It could get very close, or it could still stay offshore, and we can work and we can hope for the best outcome. So that's pretty much my feelings with regards to Hurricane Lane. As I said earlier, we're going to update this. I'll come back tonight. I have a library talk tonight at my local library on Long Island, at Sachem Library at 7 p.m. Anybody watching from Long Island would like to come, by all means, it's free. So do join me. And then after that's done, I will probably come back and do a live stream tonight. It'll probably be closer to 9 or 10 o'clock when I'm able to do that. Aaron Raybear, the lava flows are not having any kind of impact really with regards to warming the water there. It's a minuscule amount compared to the with respect to the Pacific. Maybe it's having some impact in shallow waters nearby, but that's a huge ocean, so it isn't having going to have any kind of material water temperature impact in the broad sense. It's certainly not going to have it, offshore where I think it really matters much more. The other question, Aaron Raber, also you bring up the fact that slowing down. That's another issue also that has to be considered because the models do have this moving relatively slowly. If that is the case, then we are perhaps talking about cooler water having a bit of a bigger impact on the system as opposed to if it were moving at a fast clip. If it were moving at a fast clip, I would certainly be very concerned because then the impact of a slightly colder ocean is going to be minimized. As far as the ocean water temperatures are concerned, this is a kind of a tough map to look at. But I'll bring it up. They really. I'll show you what this looks like, and it's a little bit difficult to make out. But here's a map of sea surface temperatures from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. Let me just fix that up for you, and so you can see it. And okay, I know that's like it's crazy, all right, but if you look at where that X is, okay, what looks like an X or a black dot, that is the big island of Hawaii. The the white line that goes through there that you follow up, it's in that, not the dark purple, but the next lighter shade of purple is the edge of 27 degrees Celsius water, or roughly 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So the 28 degrees Celsius water lies down at around 17 degrees north. So once it gets north of 17 degrees north, if it's moving at a snail's pace, say under 10 miles an hour, and you've got this wind shear issue that's going to be there too. That is going to have impact on the strength. So I would say this: if the wind shear becomes less of an issue, the ocean water temperature might weaken it, but it may not weaken it as quickly as it would if you have this combination of the slightly cooler water and the wind shear. 28 degrees Celsius water could certainly support a Category 2-ish hurricane, maybe even a borderline Category 3. The 29 degrees Celsius water could certainly support a Category 3 hurricane or higher. 27-degree water can support a minimal hurricane or a tropical storm, but it's hard for it to support anything more than that, particularly if you have a wind shear issue getting involved. So that is the perspective from the standpoint of what the water temperatures mean to all of this. It's always amazed me over the years, having seen example after example of tropical systems that have approached Hawaii and how many of them have weakened, and actually how few of them have moved directly overhead as hurricanes. So we have to go back, I believe, to 1992 for Hurricane Iniki, which was the last direct hit. That came up actually from the south, and if I remember correctly, it came up fairly deep into the hurricane season. I think it was more toward the latter part of the hurricane season, and certainly not at the beginning part, obviously. So a lot here. A lot here is in question. So we will. This is a learning experience for me as well, by the way. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so live stream tonight, Iron Mine. So figure probably sometime around, at the earliest, it'll be as 9 o'clock, and it might be closer to 9:30 or 10 Eastern time by the time I get everything organized and underway. All right, so I have a website post that is up with this, so you can take a look at that at meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And that's pretty much it, folks. Just want to say as a disclaimer that I'm a participant in the Amazon Services and the Ebates LLC program, affiliate programs, which allow for this channel to earn fees from Amazon and Ebates by linking to them. So if you use those links to do your shopping, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and hopefully we will see you tonight. We'll talk more about Hurricane Lane and get that all updated, and we'll take a look at our local weather back here in the U.S., which, by the way, looks like a really nice, dry, cool air mass is heading into the eastern half of the United States for the second half of this week, and I can hardly wait. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you later.